Good morning and welcome to the brief. I'm Bear with preparedness.com. You all know that. If you're new here, ring the little bell icon, hit the subscribe button. If you're not new here, you know what to do. Share the show with somebody you love. Okay, Bear. Of course, today's show is brought to you by Refuge Medical. We'll talk more about that at the end of the brief. In the meanwhile, we got a bunch of stuff to talk about. The South China Sea, nuclear submarines, a Reaper drone collision, and some indicators, perhaps indicators, in the eyes of one man, of a coming war with China. All very fitting for We All Gonna Die Wednesday. Now, if you've been here for a while, you may remember that we used to put the threat matrix up on the whiteboard every Wednesday and discuss where the vectors of attack were manifesting themselves against the American people and preparedness-minded individuals like us. We don't need the whiteboard anymore because all boxes are checked. Tyranny, food scarcity, economic collapse, war, etc., etc. Just all boxes are checked. Okay, so if you miss the threat matrix, all boxes are checked. Tracking. Good morning, Mac. Good morning to everybody in the chat. Appreciate you guys. Hey, throw a thumbs up. That helps us in our ongoing battle against the YouTube algorithmic robots. Okay, Bear. 15MAR23, Bear Independent Brief. In the South China Sea, which we will be talking about a bit this morning, the Spratly Islands are at least partially claimed by 6 separate countries in the region, only 6, making them a tense, hotly contested area. Recently, China and the Philippines both radioed each other, claiming the territory, demanding the other to leave. The Philippines is allied with who? Oh, the Estados Unidos, Bear. That's right, us. China's allied with who? Not us. Thank you, Michael Martinez. Good morning. It's not an unusual phenomenon, but it has come after multiple complaints were lodged against China's actions, such as using a laser to blind a Philippine Coast Guard crew last month. Reports indicate that rhetoric is growing hotter, specifically in the area around these contested islands, the Spratlys. Meanwhile, China has unveiled plans for a massive sand dredging vessel, an island builder. With what would be the largest reamer in the world, it is expected to be 50% more powerful than the island builder it currently has. This may be an indicator of future escalation of tension in the South China Sea. In 2020 alone, Taiwan expelled 4,000 Chinese vessels designed to dredge and transport sand from its waters. Island building. That's more than 5 times the amount compared to the year prior. China's actions have spurred other countries in the region to engage in defensive measures, essentially spurring on an arms race. Now, if you look at the area of the South China Sea on a map that China claims, it's massive. It's like all of the South China Sea, all of what should be international waters, which will play into another portion of the brief. All of what should be international waters in the South China Sea is claimed by China. That's why they're building islands down there to say, see, we have this island here and this island here and this island. These are very clearly our islands. How do we know? We built them. We put them here. Therefore, ergo, this is our sea. Also, China likes having these island and control of these islands outside of mainland China because it serves as like an early warning device for them. They can put sensors or soldiers or both on these islands to know if, say, the United States floats in 3 aircraft carrier strike groups again as a show of force. So island building continues in the South China Sea. That whole area, South China Sea, is contested. China says it's theirs. The rest of the world says, no, it's not. And it's just a matter of time before somebody feels froggy. What about the Estados Unidos, the United States? For only the second time in history, the U.S. has shared technology with Australia, specifically to counter the threat in the Indo-Pacific. The U.S. and the U.K. will be transferring nuclear-powered submarine technology to Australia, specifically in an effort to strengthen strategic coordination. This will lead to increased Australian capacity to be part of coordinated operations, including regular South China Sea patrols. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin said that the 3 countries, quote, completely disregard the concerns of the international communities and are walking further and further down the path of error and danger, end quote. Good morning, Kelly Bonesteel. Thank you so much. I appreciate that super chat. That's awesome. I'm going to take my hat off. Somebody the other day said, hey, Bear, you had a hair out of place, to which I responded, I will take it up with my stylist. Here's my stylist. I'm so sorry, Bear Nation. I resolve to do better. Okay. Good talk, everybody. So China rhetoric. Oh, the United States, Australia, and the UK are marching further and further down the pathway of danger. Says China, building islands out of sand they stole from Taiwan in the South China Sea. Now, we're going to look at a couple of articles from RT here in a moment. Again, remember Russian propaganda, but it's all propaganda. We could look at Fox News. That would be American propaganda if you prefer. However, whatever breakfast cereal flavored propaganda you would like to have this morning, we can find it on the interwebs, because what is truth anymore? I would submit the word of God is truth. And what does he say? Hey, y'all fixing to have some wars. Pay attention. The New Living Bear translation. So the thing to understand with these submarines or submarine technology being transferred to Australia is we're not talking a massive fleet of submarines here. We're talking 3 to possibly 5 Virginia-class nuclear-powered, nuclear-capable submarines that can do both deep water and littoral missions. The current Australian submarine fleet is essentially littoral only, or almost entirely littoral, meaning close to the coastline. And Australia's summation is, or has been to this point, that they want to have more smaller littoral submarines close to the coastline to prevent a Chinese invasion, as compared to having fewer deep water submarines to perhaps prevent a Chinese invasion, if you're catching my drift here. So, and of course, this is getting pushback from certain members of the Australian government and former members of the Australian government. We'll talk more on that in a moment. A currently developing story that is that of the collision. I can't read today. I apologize. A currently developing story is that of the collision of an American MQ-9 Reaper drone with a Russian Su-27 jet over the Black Sea, which has led to the complete loss of the drone. Now, Russia essentially believes that the Black Sea is theirs, that airspace is theirs, that the water is theirs, everything that is there belongs to Russia. And Russia's standpoint here is that, hey, we told y'all when we started this little special military operation in Ukraine that the Black Sea was off limits. To which the remainder of the international community, what a ridiculous set of words, the remainder of the international community responded, no, dude, you can't claim the entire Black Sea. We don't even want you to claim Crimea. You can't have the whole Black Sea. And so technically, the Black Sea is international waters, unless you're Russia, in which you say, no, it's ours, bro. A lot like China in the South China Sea. Officials say the drone was conducting routine operations in international airspace and that Russia conducted, quote, an unsafe and unprofessional act, end quote, when the aircraft struck the drone's propeller, allegedly. White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby told reporters, quote, I want to stress that this MQ-9 was operating in international airspace over international waters and posed a threat to nobody, and it was an unsafe and unprofessional intercept. I don't know about y'all, and I'm not defending Russia, but let's just be honest here. I don't think there's a single MQ-9 Reaper in inventory or operation anywhere that doesn't pose a threat to anybody. I don't think that's an accurate statement. Just throwing that out there. And we know, so the Reaper can carry 1,700-ish kilograms, 37-ish 100 pounds of ordnance, but it's also an ISR platform, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. And we know that a large part of the success that the Ukrainians have had thus far in the war of Russian aggression has been predicated on intelligence and target packages being supplied by the United States of America. We're like Not an aggressor, but not a non-aggressor. We're definitely a participatory party when it comes to this war in Ukraine. And so the Ukrainians know where to launch their attacks. They know where to shoot their missiles. They know when to bug out because of intelligence that's being provided by the Americans. And in large part, that intelligence is coming from drones like the Reaper, which is not a small drone. This is not a DJI Mavic we're talking about now. It's got like a wingspan of like 66 feet or so, 950 horsepower engine on the thing. It's a significant piece of equipment. So it's not like the Russian Su-27 accidentally flew into it. It's not like a seagull, like this thing's bigger than a Cessna. It's a significantly sized drone. Tracking like a tank bear. So the AUKUS deal from Russian propaganda. AUKUS deal worst in all history, says former Australian Prime Minister. Buying U.S.-designed nuclear submarines to get sunk near China is no way to defend the country, said Paul Keating. Former Australian Prime Minister Paul Keating has fired a broadside against the incumbent government for its endorsement of the AUKUS security arrangement and the purchase of American submarines. It doesn't help protect the country, and it drags it into the U.S. attempt to preserve its hegemony by containing China, he argued. Well, here's the deal. Never underestimate your enemy. And we're going to come back to the article in a moment. Never underestimate your enemy, but also know thine own self. And I'm not saying there aren't significant systemic issues with the United States Department of Defense, because there are. But also, for approximately the last 250 years, the United States and predecessors of the United States have been kicking tail all around the globe. Now, the fate of empire, Sir John Glubb, all good things must come to an end, right? What happens after the United States collapses? And what we know now is the FUSA, the former United States of America. I don't know, but I do know, or at least I believe strongly, that currently the United States is the best looking horse in the glue factory, to borrow a phrase from my brother Jay Johns. Russia, not doing so hot in Ukraine. Like, global superpower? Maybe. Do they have nuclear weapons? And does that give us pause? Yeah, for sure. Yep, noted, for sure. Are they a tier 1 military? No, not so much. They're not doing so great right now. Not doing so great. China. What about China? Well, Bear, there's 1.3 billion of them. Are there? First of all, are there? Because up until a couple of years ago, the demographers were concerned that China was underreporting its population and that its population could have been closer to 2 billion people. Now we're finding out, post the age of COVID, that they have significantly overreported the number of people that they have. And most of the people that they say that they had that don't exist are people of reproductive age. So their demography appears to be in a tailspin. Tarpon Yellow, bless you, from Grandma Joe. Thank you, Grandma Joe. You're awesome. Joellen Pratt. Oh, that's your name backwards. I just figured that out. Thank you, Joellen. You're awesome. Although I like Tarpon Yellow. Whatever. We're going to go with it. Tarpon Yellow. Thank you, Joellen. So we don't know how many people China has. We do know, they're still basically running AK-74 derivatives. But most of their 1,000 ships that they have, 800 of their 1,000 naval ships, are civilian ships that somebody fitted a machine gun to the bow. And they have an effective combat range of roughly 400 miles. So we're not talking about deep water ships here. But they have hypersonic missiles. Yeah, okay, cool. We got laser beams, bro. And so, again, never underestimate your enemy. But am I overly concerned about China? Only in the sense that they have a crazy dictator just like the Russians do, kind of like the Iranians. If we, the big we, United States of America decided, hey, tomorrow Iran gets wiped from the map, pull the binder off the shelf, flip to page 72, execute on course of action, bravo. the end, handled. So we, the Americans, have this capability to prosecute these wars. Yeah. Yep. We could if we wanted to. The question is, do we want to? Well, we know that our leadership has in large part been bought and paid for by China and Ukraine and others. Russian collusion. Who's appearing to collude with Russia now? Just asking simple questions. Who's washing your taxpayer dollars through Ukraine right now? Just throwing that out there. Things to think about. Back to the AUKUS deal. Keating, who chaired the Australian government in the 90s, reiterated his negative view of the purchase of the Virginia-class nuclear-powered boats in a lengthy rebuke this week. He branded it the worst international decision by a Labour Australian government since conscription in World War I. Now, getting back to the U.S. hegemony, I'm not saying that what we have in the United States of America is ideal, but I am saying it's pretty freaking awesome compared to the rest of the world. And as far as hegemony is concerned, the American dollar is still somehow, I don't know. Yes, and I fully acknowledge it's make-believe money, right? Like, fully acknowledge. But the American dollar is still what we do business with. The American Navy still patrols the 7 seas, right? We still have the ability to project force pretty much anywhere in the world if we want to. If we decide, if we have the balls for that conflict, we can and we do, right? And so, yeah, is the world as we know it ending? Probably, right? Empires rise, empires fall. What comes next? I have no idea. But in the meanwhile, the American hegemony, if I was Australia and my choices were be friends with Xi Jinping or be friends with the Americans, I'm going to go with the Americans. That's me. Now, admitting my biases, I did not grow up in China. I was not indoctrinated into the Chinese way of thought. I grew up in the United States of America. I was indoctrinated into the American way of thinking. G.I. Joe and Rambo and Full Metal Jacket and Platoon and be all you can be in the Army, right? Like, that's what I grew up with. Soldier of Fortune magazine and, cousins that were Navy SEALs. The first time I saw an MP5, I was 8 years old, and I was like, this thing is badass. I want 4 of these. They're like, you only have 2 hands. I was like, 2 is 1, 1 is none. You know what I mean? Anyway, my point is that admitting my biases, I still think, objectively speaking, that the United States, when it comes to hegemony, is probably the world's best at it currently. Subject to change? Possibly. I don't think China has the horsepower to do all the things that they say they're going to do or that we are afraid they're going to do. Now, that could change. And so that's going to take the declination of the United States of America so that China can rise. And we see that happening systemically here in the Estados Unidos, smashing the Americans down so that other people can rise, so that the Chinese can rise. World Economic Forum, anybody, the globalists, the elites, the Council on Foreign Relations, the reptilian overlords, the Pleiadians, the lizard people, whoever you think they are. Yeah, they're working on this. How do we counteract that? You be as excellent and badass as possible in your daily life and don't depend on them for anything. Get off the government tit. Andy Frisella, first form. Personal excellence is the ultimate rebellion. How many people have said or heard, no king but Jesus? Yeah, amen. Except there's no J in Hebrew, and he spoke Aramaic. Do a little bit of research. But I digress. Yeah, I bend the knee for no man. I bend the knee for no man. I take care of me and mine. So I don't need the government. So that they could maybe do one of the few things that they actually should be doing, which is national defense. Know what I mean, Prepared Jared? You know what I mean. That's right, just me. That's right. So AUKUS and nuclear submarines, the former prime minister from the 90s is not happy. He basically sees this as warmongering. I see it, to me, because the argument is, The Australian Royal Navy is getting up to 5 attack submarines from the US, possibly building 3 more with the UK's help. The deal is estimated to cost 300 billion Australian dollars. With that investment, Australia could have 40 to 50 domestically built Collins-class diesel-electric submarines instead, Keating, the former prime minister, suggested. They were designed to patrol Australian coasts rather than conduct lengthy missions like the nuclear-powered Virginia-class submarines. The issue with that, do I want 50 submarines that the Chinese and the Russians can hear with their sonar underwater from 400, 500, 1,000 miles away? Or do I want 5 that they can't? Do I want 5 offensive boats or 50 defensive boats? Because sometimes the best defense is a good offense. Now, the concern here will be that these Virginia-class submarines can carry a bevy. I think they're up to 67 now Tomahawks. At one point, it was 37, then 48. I think depending on the class of the ship or the not the class, but the series, the block. That's what they use. Block 1, Block 2, Block 3, Block 4, Block 5. The block of the ship. They can carry up to 67 Tomahawk missiles now. And I think each Tomahawk, because they have individual packets of ordnance inside of the Tomahawk, can target like 166 individual targets. But more so, like usually they pick between 1 and 6 targets. So this one missile, as it's cruising along, can hit 6 different targets. One, if it's a large target, it'll drop all 166 packets of ordnance on that one target. It's badass. It's a badass missile. Again, America. But also, and allegedly they've been retired, but who knows? I don't know. The Air Force had a Tomahawk missile that was capable of carrying nuclear weapons. So if you had a nuclear-powered submarine that had nuclear-tipped Tomahawk cruise missiles on it in Australia that the Chinese can't hear, that is working in conjunction with the United States of America, that's got anywhere between 1 and 3 carrier strike groups in the South China Sea, where the Spratly Islands are being contested, it gets a little interesting, right? And I think that's why this is happening. That's my opinion on this matter. I think that's the crux of the issue, because it's one more thing that Xi Jinping and every other crazy dictator in that area has to think about. Because that boat, the Virginia-class submarine, can surface, launch all of its missiles, and get back below the water in under 90 seconds. And now you got to deal with 37, 48, 67 Tomahawk missiles coming your direction, each one of which can target between 6 and 166 individual targets. Oofda. Oh, that just sucks. That just sucks. All right, well, you shot 90% of the incoming ordnance down. That's still 10% that got through. That's a lot. It's a lot of targets. That's dozens of targets, right? And so again, admitting our biases, knowing that I was indoctrinated by G.I. Joe, right? Knowing is half the battle. G.I. Joe, right? By the way, what were Duke and Flint always doing in the boys' room in the school? That's a little creepy, if you ask me. Like, this is where we're recruiting now from the boys' restroom. It's odd. Like, Flint would just like casually come walking out of a stall like, that's right, Johnny, wash your hands because of the bacteria. Like, dude, get out of here. Anyway, my point is, while the United States of America is certainly less than ideal, if we have the balls to prosecute a war, we certainly have the tools and capability to do so. Australia's former prime minister, on the other hand, isn't super happy about that. Also, Russian propaganda. What is known about the Black Sea drone incident? The U.S. and other NATO countries have been flying spy missions just outside Russian airspace for more than a year. Joke's on you, for more than a decade, providing intelligence and other information to Ukraine while insisting they have not been directly involved in the conflict. Yeah, we're absolutely walking that line. And maybe I'm just feeling a little froggy today, because, I mean, it is We All Gonna Die Wednesday, but I'm kind of like, try me. Try us, bro. Like, Try us. Have you ever seen that story in Syria where the Wagner Group tried to take, I think it was a ConocoPhillips oil field, and there was a couple hundred soft dudes there. There was actually even a telephone that both the Americans and the Russians could pick up the phone and talk to the other side to deconflict, right? Because they were both performing air quote security operations. And Wagner showed up with a convoy of about 500 dudes, against this ConocoPhillips oil field that had a fob established on it. And so the Americans called on the phone to deconflict. They're like, hey, Russia, is that y'all? And they're like, oh, no, totally not us. Like, all right, you're fixing to get some. Artillery opens up, 4 Apaches open up, and the Americans destroyed this Wagner group. There's a big-ass convoy. I believe 2 vehicles were not completely destroyed. The Russians took more than 200 casualties in a matter of moments. It's an utter rout. They turned tail and ran. And this was on short notice, operating out of a fob. So, again, maybe I'm just feeling froggy. I'm not saying I want warheads on foreheads, but I am saying there's a part of me, if I was President Bear right now, I'd probably be in the try me, bro phase. And that actually does a lot for deterrence. Speak softly and carry a big stick. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. We can have a civil conversation until I go hacksaw Jim Duggan on you with a 2x4, right? That's right, Hypno. Tell him, FAFO. That's exactly right. So oftentimes it's easy to make hay out of, but what if the Russians do this? What if the Chinese do this? Okay, but what if we do this? What if I put 4 Apache gunships, 4 on your convoy? Just 4. And you go from 500 dudes to 300 dudes in a matter of moments. And you go from 100 vehicles to 2 in a matter of moments because you lied to me on the phone. Okay. You want to play that game again? You want to lie to me on the phone again? You know what happened after that with that little phone? The Russians quit lying to us on the phone because we utterly destroyed them. See what I mean? So sometimes you got to FAFO. Sometimes you got to FO. Sometimes you just got to find out, right? And again, I think that the Americans, us, we still have, to a large degree, that spirit. FAFO, bro. You want a war? I'll give you a war. How much time you got? Anybody remember the Gulf War? I'll be on your doorstep in 72 hours. We can negotiate then. But I digress. What is known about the MQ-9 Reaper attack? Where did this happen? Neither the U.S. nor Russia has provided any coordinates for the incident. The Americans argue that the drone was, quote, operating within international airspace over the Black Sea, because it is international airspace. The Russians claim the drone was inside the restricted airspace established for the special military operation, aka Ukraine war, of which everyone was properly notified months ago. Unconfirmed reports in the Russian media put the drone's location about 60 kilometers southwest of the Crimean port of Sevastopol. Crimea being the peninsula that kind of started all of this 8 years ago, that Russia decided, we like that. We're going to take that. And then Ukraine was like, nah, dog. And Russia was like, yeah, we're going to take that. And the rest of the world was like, Russia, you really shouldn't do that. And they're like, yeah, okay, cool. We're going to take that. And then they did. And now 8 years later, here we are. What kind of drone was it? The MQ-9 Reaper was developed from the original MQ-1 Predator. The U.S. military described it as an intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, or ISR platform. Though it certainly can be used for ISR work, the Reaper is primarily a hunter-killer capable of carrying 3,747,000 pounds worth of paveway laser-guided bombs or Hellfire missiles. Developed by the California-based General Dynamics, the remotely piloted aircraft has a wingspan of 20 meters, 66 feet, and is powered by a 950 horsepower turboprop engine capable of cruising at speeds of 280 to 310 kilometers an hour. The U.S. military operated around 300 of them as of 2021. Why was the drone there? The U.S. and NATO have ramped up their surveillance of Russia in both the Baltic and Black Sea after the conflict in Ukraine escalated in February 2022. True. Washington has repeatedly confirmed providing Kiev with advice, intelligence, and information needed to target the Russian military. True. As well as weapons, equipment, and money. True. All while insisting that the U.S. is not party to the hostilities. True. We're insisting that we're not party to the hostilities, but we 100% are. Ukraine is a proxy war between the United States and NATO, ? And Russia. This is fun. On Monday, a nuclear-capable B-52 bomber of the U.S. Strategic Command deliberately flew towards St. Petersburg, Russia, the capital, turning around only after reaching the range required to launch a cruise missile. On the one hand, you could say, how provocative, how stupid. Are you trying to start a hot war with Russia? On the other hand, FAFO, bro. Yeah, maybe I am. Just remember that, Putin. Like, warheads on foreheads is a two-way street. What happened to the wreck? The Pentagon insists that no part of the drone has been recovered by Russia, but would not provide any more details to U.S. reporters. Moscow has not officially commented on the matter. According to an open source researcher on social media, however, the Russian Navy managed to recover several parts after a search and rescue operation, as the U.S. and its NATO partners observed from a PA-8 and G-550 surveillance planes. So PA-8 is the Poseidon. That's a sub-killer. That's interesting. That's interesting. G550 is a Gulfstream. It's like a business jet. It can be outfitted with whatever. You could do Casevac, Medevac with it. You can do aerial reconnaissance and ISR with it. You can just move people around with it. It could be however it was upfitted after the government bought it. It could be whatever you want it to be. It's just basically a blank pallet of an airframe. But the fact that there's PA-8s flying around in the Black Sea, that's interesting because they're sub-killers. That's what they do. They also have sensor packages, right? How do you know a submarine's there? You got to be able to sense it. Last little thing I want to look at, and this is just kind of shooting from the hip like most of the brief has been today, but the last little thing I want to look at today is maybe, and I'm just throwing this out there, okay? So suspend disbelief for a moment, okay? Thought exercise. Maybe they, the big they, will say our DOD and our federal government, maybe they're not as stupid as we think they are. Maybe, again, like I said, suspend disbelief. I know it's going to be difficult, but just hear me out on this, okay? War with China. Let's look at some indicators here. Let's start with the global pandemic, COVID-19, as everybody's favorite supervillain Klaus Schwab is fond of saying. COVID-19. What did we learn from COVID? We now know where all of our manufacturing weak points are, right? We know what we need to nearshore and onshore. We learned the political disposition of our allies and our foes pretty quickly. And by all estimates, COVID killed a lot more of the Chinese than it did anybody else. So just let's say that the pandemic was intentional, and I'm not saying it was. Okay, what do we learn from that? Man, our manufacturing and supply chains aren't nearly as strong as they need to be. Okay, so we need to triple the manufacturing base in the United States over the next 5 to 10 years. Why would that be important? Well, because right now, the vast majority of the shit that you buy at Walmart and everywhere else comes from China. So if you think COVID interrupted supply chains, what do you think is going to happen with a war with China? You think they're going to be sending widgets over here? Yeah, probably not. Yeah, but the United States is their largest trade partner. That's why we haven't had a war yet, in my mind. Okay, so again, suspend disbelief. Just hear me out on this. So from COVID, we learned how to insulate ourselves from supply chain interruptions. War with Ukraine. Okay. So we're seeing how Russia, China's largest ally, operates on a battlefield. We're learning about their logistics, learning about their capabilities. We're also, to a certain extent, bleeding them dry of personnel and equipment. We're seeing how the rest of the world reacts, right? BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, etc. Who's on our team? Who's not on our team, right? So we're learning this, as well as getting some battlefield practice with our systems and our people, because yes, our people are over there, and yes, our people have been there for more than a decade. Yeah. I have some very interesting friendships and relationships with people that don't have names and do things that never happened in places that don't exist. And in the mouths of two or three, let a thing be established. Well, I've got more than two or three who have personally been over there for the last decade. FID, Foreign Internal Defense. OTE. Yeah. So we're getting some battlefield practice. We, the United States and NATO, we're getting some reps and sets in for what a land war might look like, while at the same time learning Russia's capabilities and potentially weakening them, right? Continue suspending disbelief. The United States Marine Corps, in the last 18 months or so, has announced a large shift to littoral combat operations. I think that technically means within 14 miles of the coast. Littoral combat operations. The Marine Corps had some ships that they were going to build that they scrapped, which is interesting because they're part of the Navy, right? So let the Navy build the ships, put the Marines on the ships. When we get near the shore, kick the Marines off the ship so they can go up there and make the grass grow. Whatever. The Marine Corps had some ships, some deep water, blue ocean ships that they were going to build, and they scrapped all that. And they're like, no, we need littoral combat ships. We need to be able to get our people from near the coast to the coast. We need to be able to land troops. United States Marine Corps littoral ops in the last year and a half, huge shift of focus for the Marine Corps. The United States is now floating sanctions against China, which some people believe would be far more devastating on China than they would be on Russia, because China is a net importer of food and fuel and energy and fertilizer and raw goods and commodities and everything else. That's an indicator. And then we look at the United States defense of Taiwan, how, as Pastor Joe calls him, the sock puppet. Biden, because the United States has had a policy of basically like, we'll support Taiwan, but we're not going to be openly aggressive towards China because of Taiwan. Look at how that has changed in the last year. We are providing equipment, material, manpower, training, and funding to Taiwan. And the big talking point here has been semiconductors. What about Japan strengthening its relationship with the United States of America? If you look at a map of China and the Pacific Ocean and the South China Sea, you will note that mainland China is ringed by all of these islands. Japan, Taiwan, Philippines, etc., etc. All of those islands, or the vast majority of those islands, are allies of the United States of America. Jumping off points. Why are we putting 3 strike groups, aircraft carrier strike groups, in the South China Sea? One aircraft carrier strike group is a nation killer, has the capability to be a nation killer for all but the top 10 nations in the world, including us. One strike group. We got 3 of them. So I'm just saying, defense of Taiwan, strengthening our relationships with Japan, the Philippines, et cetera, et cetera. If you're to take a global look at these things, all these indicators, the supply chain interruptions from the pandemic, the Ukraine war FTX, the United States of America, the weakening of Russia, the United States Marine Corps focus on littoral operations, sanctions against China and against Russia, the defense of Taiwan, strengthening our relationships with those island chains around mainland China, and putting carrier strike groups in the South China Sea, and the fact that from their lips to my ears, dudes who operationally operate like operators, that's their job. Guys that non-ironically own PVS 31s and 300 blackout short barrel rifles with suppressors on them because that's their job, have told me point blank that they expect a hot war with China by 2025, which, by the way, is less than 2 years away. It makes me wonder if there's not utter ineptitude at the highest levels of leadership, that maybe somebody's got 3 or 4 synapses rubbing against one another, creating an electrical charge. And what we're experiencing, thank you, Mofetti FPV, thank you. Maybe what we're experiencing, because we can't talk about it, operational security, right? We can't talk about why we're doing these things, but we can experience the ramifications of these things that we're doing. Maybe there's a larger picture here when it comes to war in the South China Sea. I'm not saying that that's the case, but I am saying if we take a global look at what's happening here, I could, and I just did, make the case for perhaps we're setting the chess pieces in motion that when war with China starts, because I think that's inevitable, we already understand supply chain disruption. We've already weakened China's greatest ally, Russia. We've already weakened China themselves through sanctions and eliminating their availability of raw commodities and goods, while building up the Marine Corps for littoral operations, strengthening, moving more of our Navy into that area, and strengthening our relationship with our partners in the area. Just saying, all those indicators seem to line up. So, Kat said, manufacturing in the U.S. costs lots of loot. Unions want more money. And who do the unions support? Yeah, historically, they've supported the Democrats. But also, you know, a lot of states are right-to-work states where there aren't labor unions. And having worked with, not for, but with several labor unions, and I don't really want to piss too many people off this morning, but suffice it to say, in most cases, I have been unimpressed with the work ethic and prowess of the union employees who have showed up on my job sites. It's just a fact. In one union hall in Sayreville, New Jersey, for equipment operators, I threw 3 equipment operators off of a backhoe in the same day because they were terrible. And I told the guy, the shop lead or whatever they call him, he came out screaming, "You can't keep throwing my guys off the job." And I was like, "Hey, buddy, I can do whatever the hell I want." I said, send me the best operator you have. This is simple stuff. Pick the stuff up with the bucket, put it in the dump truck. He said, "Well, I'm the best operator we got." I said, "Then get on that fucking machine and put the stuff in the dump truck." An hour later, I threw him off the job and I ran it myself. I ran the backhoe myself while project managing the job. You know, phone, radio, backhoe, because it's simple stuff. Put the dirt, in this case, it was ball field clay, which is used for thermal grout, to grout in the airspace in between casings and conduits for subsurface DC transmission lines. Put the ball field clay in the dump truck. It's as simple as that. Not the dirt, not the gravel. Put the ball field clay in the dump truck. So I threw him off the machine. I loaded trucks with the backhoe. And then his boss's boss and him showed up and started screaming at me while I was on the backhoe saying, "You're not allowed to do that." I said, "I own the effing machine and I'm in charge of the project. I'm allowed to do whatever I want." They said, "Well, we're going to sue you." I said, "Whatever you want to do, dude. Take me to court." I've had to throw 4 different people from your union hall off of the job today. 4. Not 1, 4. And that's just basically my experience in a nutshell with unions, at least in the Northeast. Okay. So, and I'll also, the reason I had to start a tree service at 17 years old was because my mom was a member of the CWA, Communication Workers of America, which was part of the IBEW, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. And she worked for the phone company. And the phone company went on strike for 2 years. 2 years. 2 years. And the union paid $100 a week. Now that's better than $0 a week, but man, you don't want to be a scab, right? You can't be a scab. Well, when you got a house full of kids and bills to pay, $100 a week doesn't get it done. So at 17 years old, I started my first business with a $200 chainsaw and a $500 pickup truck, cutting timber, splitting firewood by hand so that I could make money to feed my household. Thanks, unions. Now, if this was the Congo, where we have children digging cobalt out of the ground for Chinese lithium-ion batteries with their bare hands, yeah, I see the function of a labor union. But you don't need one more coffee break today. You need to go out there and get some, regardless of what your union says you can or can't do. That's the brief for today. If you're one of those people who jumps off when it's time to talk about how to support the show, whether you don't care to support the show or you're already supporting the show, that's fine. You know the deal. Beat feet, skedaddle, get out of here. Have a blessed day. Shalom. That's right, Sway. Beat feet. For everybody else, we're going to talk about how to support the show. Okay, Bear. All right, good talk, everybody. Links to all this stuff in the description. Every live stream, every video, all the links are there. Patreon talked about resupply and SHTF this morning, specifically how to and where and place caches in SHTF, a linear cache and an area cache, and what that looks like and why one would have to do that, etc., etc. Patreon is five entire doll hairs per month. That's a cappuccino from the mermaid place. That's a can of Skoal. That's less than a pack of cigarettes. You know, that's 3 Bush Lights these days. For a month's worth of life-saving content, go check it out. Link in the description. There's more than 20 exclusive pieces of content there per month. Go check it out. And Patreon also serves as a backup to this platform here on YouTube. When YouTube decides they've had enough of my shenanigans, I'll still be over on Patreon. And many people ask, well, how are you going to do that? I have plans. If that comes to pass, I will let you know. Right now, you don't have the need to know. Roger that, Bear. All right. RefugeMedical.com. Of course, all that stuff at RefugeMedical.com, which, truth in advertising, I'm the founder and CEO of RefugeMedical.com. Started that beast of a business just about 4 years ago. I think it might even be 4 years ago today. Is today our birthday? I should find out. I don't know. Is today our birthday? Is today RM's birthday? It might be our birthday. Anyway, we're pushing 4 years in business. And in that time, we've gone from my barn to 4 continents. Pretty badass, right? I don't know if it is. I appreciate the happy birthday wishes, but I don't know if it is. So don't congratulate us yet. Like, shows you how much attention I pay to this little thing called Refuge Medical, right? We're just busy over here executing. I don't know if it's our birthday or not. My point is, we make everything here. Every stitch, every grommet, every buckle, every thread, made in America, guaranteed forever. If you break it, I'll replace it at no cost to you. If you use the kit to save a life, I'll replace it. Whatever you use at no cost to you. We're up to 69 lives saved with Refuge Medical equipment. That's incredible. Absolutely incredible. Praise the Father. 68 and 69 were both attempted suicides that the person who tried to kill himself was saved with Refuge Medical equipment. That is not the first suicide that has been saved with Refuge Medical equipment. While I hate the circumstances, I love the fact that the Father equipped good people to save those people's life, because the Father was not done with them yet, and they're still here. That's incredible to me. That's what we're about. Our mission statement is to save lives while in service to the Father's kingdom and experiencing the abundance of his provision and blessing. And I do not define abundance as my fourth home in the mountains and a yacht and a private jet. The abundance that I experience is the life that I get to lead with the people that I love every day, doing meaningful work, engaging in meaningful relationships. That's what Refuge is all about, the preservation of life. And if you're wondering where that name came from, Yahuwah, the Lord your God, is our refuge and our strength. It is so cool to me. It is so cool to me because of this kit. 69 people got to go home to their families. It's incredible. It's incredible to me because this was a cool idea I had in my barn 4 years ago. Matt Drake just bought a Bearfax, Stop the Bleed kit, some tourniquets, and some patches. Best customer service I've ever seen and the best quality products. Thank you for being the tip of the spear against evil. Praise the Lord, we are blessed. Oh, bless you, Matt Drake. That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you. See, that's what we're about, man. We're about. And I could show you every feature of this kit, and I have before. You know what this is. This is the Bearfax. There are many like it, but this one's mine. I designed this. I have iterated on this one. This is the 3.0 with input from Naval Special Warfare, Army Special Forces, Air Force pararescuemen, law enforcement officers, EMTs, myself, over and over and over again to make it the best possible kit that you can buy. Is it cheap? No, that's the point. It's not Chinese garbage. It will save your life. There's no nice to haves in here. There's no extra 97 Band-Aids, 210 piece first aid kit. Negative. Exactly the number of pieces you need to work the March algorithm. It's not clickbait bullshit. It's not made in a communist country by child slave labor. It's made here by Americans. It's the best damn kit you can get. If you can find a better one, I will buy it. And newsflash, I haven't found one yet. David Hosfield, your briefs truly enhanced my life. Thank you so much, David. I appreciate you. That's awesome. Thank you. Palmetto Paratrooper said, I have one. It was worth waiting a couple of months to set aside the money. Oh, bless you, brother. So if you're in the market for life-saving equipment, refugemedical.com. We have components. We have kits. We have kits from a boo-boo kit up to a stomp bag. A stomp bag is a SEAL team operational medical pack, which is bona fide by actual Navy SEALs. Yeah, SEAL medics, SARCs. They're like, damn, this one's better than mine. That's what we do. That's what we do. We make it better. Not better like price point and profitability wise, better capability wise. So we got everything from my kid fell off a bike to my Humvee just got blown up with a V-bed. Literally. We have all of that. refugemedical.com. So the best first purchase would be the Bearfax 3.0. Julia R., I would greatly recommend the Bearfax 3.0. If you don't have any other trauma first aid kit, start with the Bearfax 3.0. That's where I would start. And if not the Bearfax, then I would also look at the bare minimum 2.0. All of our stuff is FSA and HSA eligible, by the way. And I think that stuff expires today or like at the end of this month. If you have one of those that does expire, I think it expires by the end of the month. So something you want to be cognizant of. If you don't use that money, in a lot of cases, you burn it. You don't get it back. All right, Refuge training. Refuge training. We teach you how to use this stuff so that you can save lives. I was on my way someplace the other day, and I was driving along, and I came upon a 3-car pileup, and I stopped to assist. And the officer who had control of the scene was Refuge training alumni. If you watched the responder testimonials on the Refuge YouTube channel, which you should be subscribed to, you could see that officer in that video. And at the end of the video, it's only 90 seconds long, he makes a comment saying, how good it makes him feel to know that there are civilians out there who have this level of training, because in 7 years of law enforcement, this is some of the best training he's ever had. And to know that there's civilians who are being trained like this makes him a lot more comfortable if he's on a traffic stop. Well, as the father would have it, or fate, or serendipity, or chance, or whatever bullshit you believe in would have it, I pull up on this wreck, and he's the one working the wreck. And praise the Father, while there was a 3-car pileup, the most grievous injury was a busted ankle. It wasn't bad. It wasn't a bad wreck. It was cool. I'm glad. I'm glad it was all minor, because people die in car wrecks. But it was so cool to see somebody that I had trained a month before, like me and the team had trained this person a month before. And here they are out in the wild, doing the things, being the light. It was awesome. It was awesome. So Refuge training teaches you how to use these kits. I would strongly recommend you watch that video. I played it on Monday morning of the Responder 3 testimonials. Good morning to my brother Rex in the chat and all the blue wrenches. I appreciate y'all. Hey, True Talk. Shut the hell up. User hidden on this channel. So, Alex, bless you. Just finished Responder 3 yesterday. It was awesome. Lots of knowledge and practice. Thank you for the hard work. God bless you and your families. Thank you, Alex. I appreciate you. See, in the mouths of 2 or 3, let a thing be established. Appreciate you, Alex. So we have some public classes that you who can hear my voice can come to up at refugetraining.com. And we also have a lot of private classes going on this year. So if you need a private class for your agency, your organization, your church, your small business, your tactical knitting committee, whatever you're into, you can email sales@refugetraining.com. If you'd like to come to a public class, go visit refugetraining.com. Those classes are filling up, and I want you guys to get trained to know how to do this stuff. Bear, should I add the bear min to the stomp bag? Maybe. So I have a bear fac hanging on the side of my stomp bag that I have on the back of my truck right now. And the reason for that is if I need trauma medicine right now, right now, I'm going to pull that bear fac out. The stomp bag is a hospital on your back. It has trauma medical stuff in it, and it is prioritized just like every other kit per the March algorithm. But if I got to work on somebody right now, I'm going to rip that bear fac off the side of the stomp bag. And so you might consider doing something similar to that. The bare minimum is a good option for that if you're into that. I'm Ready Rich said, I was at the Waco training with you. It's not for the meek of heart, but it's an experience they should teach in all high schools. I also got your bear fac. I had a good time. God bless you, brother. Thank you, Ready Rich. See, there's a couple of witnesses right there. I want to get a stomp and a couple of separate IFACs. My thoughts. I have a family of almost 7. Yeah. Yep. Stomp 2.0 should be launching the end of the month, Rufus. In the meanwhile, we have stomps available currently. Let's see. Grindstone Ministries. You guys know the drill. I love you and you're badass. I love you and you're badass. Grindstone is our construction ministry and disaster relief ministry. When a hurricane or a tornado hits, we go be the Father's hands and feet to the best of our broken ability. We feed people, we clothe people, we deal with the debris, we help them put their lives back together. And the people that we look for are the people who were barely getting by before the storm hit, not the people that have millions of dollars of insurance and are going to be just fine. So people that could barely buy groceries last week, that's who we go look for. That's who we help. And we can only do that because of y'all. And Grindstone is building Caleb House. Caleb House is a separate 501c3, and Caleb House is a restoration facility, juvenile restoration facility for human trafficking survivors. It's a home for kids who have been trafficked and serially raped. We haven't built Caleb House yet. We're in the process. But when we started on this Caleb House journey, the Father started putting kiddos in front of us who needed our help. We now have 24 kiddos, ages 1 to 19. 1 year old. You know what the lifespan of somebody who's being trafficked is? Average lifespan of somebody who's being trafficked? It's 7 years. So that means if somebody begins getting trafficked at 8 years old, they're statistically dead by 15. They start being trafficked at 15, they're statistically dead by 22. They start being trafficked at 1, they're statistically dead by 8. That's an abomination to me. It breaks my heart. Cannot, will not stand for it. And it is so humbling to me that y'all can't stand for it either. And so we find ourselves in a situation where we've got a couple dozen people that we're actively taking care of right now while being in the process of building Caleb House, which doesn't exist yet. And from a planning standpoint, that's ass backwards, dude. It's wrong from a planning standpoint. But we considered it more wrong to know that there were people who needed our help and not do anything about it. So we did. And so we are. And so the primary mission is take care of the 24 kids that we've already got. That cost us more than $20,000 a month between food and housing and professionals, doctors' visits and therapists and educators and security personnel and everything else, rent, utilities, blah, blah, blah. That primary mission costs us more than $20,000 a month. And the secondary mission, although still super duper important, is build Caleb House. Because when Caleb House is built, we will have the ability to take care of and unbreak 60 kids, not 24. And then my long-term life goal is to build as many Caleb houses as possible. I want to build this first one, and then the second, and then the fourth, and then the 17th, and then the 85th, and then the 312th, until we work ourselves out of a job. Because I simply am not okay with the fact that right now, somewhere, there's an 8-year-old screaming. Not on my watch. And I'll tell you, it's just a matter of time before that mission becomes my primary mission. There's only so many hours in the day. There's only so much time. There's only so many things that I can do. My number one job in life is to be a father and a husband, because I will answer at the end of an age for how well I took care of my family, how well I led them. What did I teach them about what it means to be a man or a woman of Yah? Did I raise them up in the way that they should go so that they do not depart from it when they are older? My number 2 mission is these kids. And it's ugly. It's dirty. It weighs on you. It will rob you of your joy. It will eat your soul if you let it. And it's heartbreaking, but it's also beautiful at the same time when you can see just how resilient and robust and joyous these kids can be, knowing everything that they've gone through. And gosh dang, is it great for perspective. You think your life sucks? You got problems? Go tell that to this 4-year-old. We don't have problems. We are blessed beyond measure. We have everything we need and most of what we want. who the hell are we to complain? But see, when you take on a child like that, at least in our mind, that's a lifelong commitment. Bless you, Emmanuel. Thank you. That's a lifelong commitment. It's not something you just walk away from when it's difficult or inconvenient or you've got other things to do. You don't have other things to do. They're not as important. And so I'm not prophesying here. I don't know when that becomes the entirety of my professional focus, but I know it's just a matter of time. I know that it is not long-term sustainable for me to continue to do all the things that I do. And if something's got to give, it will not be breaking generational curses. It will not be forsaking widows and orphans. It will not be trying to be a blessing to the least of these to the best of our ability. So, to everybody who supports us online at grindstoneministries.com, to everybody who's bought the Caleb House swag or the Saws swag or anything else, I appreciate y'all deeply. We can't do this without you. We've never received a dime of funding from anybody else. It looks like we never will, and that's okay, because it's Yah's will be done, not mine. There is not a depth of words for the gratitude that I feel towards y'all for supporting us in this mission. Aside from raising my own family, it's the most important thing I've ever done in my life. So thank you for helping us do that. I appreciate every one of you. Pray you have a blessed day. Shalom.